Did you receive a final notice letter from Navient? Then listen up. So this final notice letter from Navient means your private student loans are about to default at the end of the month. This is not really a bluff letter. We haven't seen it in that capacity. It normally is the real deal. They are telling you that your loans are about to default. There's some interesting information here. There are some kind of bluff terminology, and there is kind of a little bit of a giveaway on how they actually go about their collection process. So let's break this down. If you got this letter, you have a private student loan with Navient, you will default at the end of the month. And they're kind of making some threats here and saying, hey, you better do something. Well, the problem is before these loans default, there's no great options. You're not going to get a good settlement. You're not going to get onto a good payment plan for more than maybe 6 months. And that's usually just interest only or interest rate reduction that's temporary, so not permanent solutions. And remember, the only two real solutions for a private student loan are refinance or settlement outside of your lender. And by the time you get this, it's too late to refinance. So now you have one real option, but that option is about to open up once you actually default. So at the bottom of this letter here, they say, call us to request a settlement. Yeah, call us to, I can't even see what it says. Call us to request settlement or payoff. So when you call and ask them for a settlement, you're totally putting the ball in their court, and they're just going to railroad you with their not so great offer, especially in this department. They're not going to go below 70 or 80% of the balance. So kind of a bluff there. Like, you're not going to get a great settlement like the ones we have on my account all the time at this stage. And by the way, this particular department is called the charge-off department, which is kind of interesting because the official term for a defaulted private student loan or a defaulted credit card is a charge-off, but the charge-off department in Navient is the one that has the accounts right before charge-off or default. So that's another clue. If you get an email and it's signed from Navient charge-off department, that's another clue that you are about to default. So these are the kind of things that I look at when someone reaches out to us and they know they're behind, they're getting some scary letters and some scary voicemails, but they're not really sure where they're at. This kind of stuff helps us plan on when the accounts are actually going to default and what we're going to do about it. So they also mentioned that I love this one, you may be required to repay the entire balance of your loans. Well, not really. Like, nobody's going to require you to do that. It's like, you can ask for that. They can ask for that, but I would also like to have a new Lamborghini in my driveway. So I can request that. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it's always kind of funny when they say that. The defaulted loans may be placed with Navient's recovery department. This is the department we negotiate with most of the time. They do send to third-party collection agencies sometimes immediately after default, but we're not seeing that as often. It's usually the Navient recovery department we're dealing with. Then it'll say loans not resolved by Navient or a collection agency may be reviewed for referral to a collection attorney licensed to practice law in your state. They're kind of telling you right here that we're not going to sue you right away. We're not going to come after you right away. We're going to try to work it out with Navient Recovery, a non-legal collection agency, or another type of agency. They kind of give away their strategy right there a little bit. The last part, the charge-off is reported to all the credit bureaus, which is true. They always like to say that it stays on your credit report up to 7 years from when the delinquency began. That's technically true, but after 2 years, it's going to have less of a negative impact. And some of the good credit repair agencies we work with can sometimes get some changes made to these accounts and these trade lines on your credit report once the settlement's done. So they can get some late payments deleted, they can get the account updated to paid as agreed, so it basically doesn't look as bad or as negative. So it's not like this is going to tank your credit for the next 7 years. I've had clients back into a good numeric score range, back into the 700s within 6 to 12 months after their settlement's done. So that's another thing where they make it sound like it's actually worse than it is. So when you get a notice like this, you don't want to panic, but you do want to start to create a plan on what you're going to do with this after it defaults. If you just leave it and don't do anything, it's the coin toss approach, which, is highly risky and could result in you getting a lawsuit at some point. And again, it does take some time for that to happen, but if you just leave this sitting in default, especially if it's a larger balance, that will become a target, and that possibility for a good settlement is not going to be there the same way with a law firm that it is with Navient Recovery, the Navient Recovery Department. So We did several settlements with them this month. I settle with them every single month. I've been doing that for many, many years since they split off from Sallie Mae back in 2014. So we have a lot of experience with these guys, and when you get a letter like this, you want to have a plan in place, and your only real solution at this point is to do a lump sum settlement, a structured settlement, possibly default refinance, which is done only through one company called Y-Refi, where they will actually settle the loan with their own funding, reissue you the loan at the full balance plus a low interest rate. So that can be a good option if you can't do a lump sum or a structured settlement. But there are a lot of options for settlement. These structured settlements can go out to 3, 4, 5 years sometimes, and we can be very creative in how we help you come up with the means to do that. But you are going to need some funds to settle at some point from some place or some person, some bank, some uncle. You're going to need some funds to settle, especially if you have a larger balance. But when you get this notice, don't panic, but it's time to make a plan.